Oh, dear God. So, welcome back to Trekkie Tuesdays, longtime viewers. And this episode is Who Mourns For Adonais? I don't know how to say it. It's at any rate not any classical term for Apollo. It's a classical term for Adonis. It's a different figure from classical mythology, but whatever. This episode is not about Adonis, it's about Apollo, the ancient Greek god, who turns out to be an actual thing, and ancient Greek mythology is more of a documentary than a body of myth. The Enterprise runs into him, and Apollo is like, "Hooray, more humans! My plan for finding more humans to worship me that involved going very far away from where there were any humans has worked perfectly! And now you have to worship me forever." They're like, "No." And he's sad. And
the most sexist episode we've seen yet.
Yeah, forget the Apollo shit. It's about gender politics.
Let's not even talk about the plot, because no one really cares about the plot. I mean, if you care about the plot, you can watch the episode. But really, I know you're just in it for our witty commentary. And, my God, what is wrong with this episode? There are so many things. I don't even know how we're going to talk about it, because I feel like you just have to watch it. Like, I think in this day and age, we've gotten to the point where, like, if you say, "That's sexist," somebody's going to be like, "Please, sexism doesn't exist. Everything's wonderful and perfect." And you're like, "No, it does." And they're like, "You're just a liberal." And you're like, "But, all right, I mean, that's also true." And so, you know, they might not believe. But I think anyone watching this show that I've met anyway, I mean, I'm sure there are other people maybe, but I feel like every human I've interacted with in my brief lifespan would be like, "Whoa, that's like, I don't think you're allowed to say that shit. Like, that's like, dude, just don't go there." And it's so much. It starts off right away within the first 30 seconds. We start off and it's like talking about how Scotty, was it Scotty?
Scotty.
Yeah, Scotty's got a crush on this female character that we've never seen before. She's like an anthropologist or something. And, which, side note, is like anthropologists, like, is that, anthropology is the only study that, like, women can study? Is that, like, a thing?
I think, yeah,
women
are allowed to have specialties in the soft sciences.
I mean, I guess there are a lot of women in anthropology, probably. But, like, I think there are a lot of men, too, but somehow, I don't know. The writers of the show think anthropology, super womanly field, and history, apparently. Anyway, that's not the point. So, Scotty's got a crush on this anthropologist lady, and she seems, like, mildly interested, I guess. And then they make this comment of, like, "Oh, but, you know, I don't think Scotty should like her because, like, you know, that's not a good idea." And Kirk is like, "Yeah, it's fine." And then he's like, "Although, you know, women just go off and get married after a certain amount of time, and then they leave the service here, and they're not part of the fleet anymore." And you're like, "What? What? Huh? What about the men who do that? What happens to them?" And then they also make this other statement that basically implies that, like, the second a guy gets a crush on a girl, he, like, can't even focus at work. I'm pretty sure Apollo, like, thunder raped the lady in this episode.
Thunder raped? Like, that conjures up fairly literal connotations that maybe are not what
Alright,
they mean.
I don't mean literally. After a big storm, she sort of stumbles out of the woods half naked. I don't know. Read into that what you will. And then apparently this episode was going to end with her being pregnant with his baby, but that was a little too shocking for a 1960 whatever audience. So they cut that part out, but it's still kind of there. And
it's totally still there. It's why they changed Apollo's mother to be a human woman, which she wasn't in the original mythology, because they want to set that up, that there are going to be romances between gods and mortals, and they produce more gods, which is not the way mythology or biology works.
Yeah, and basically, like, the one female character that's heavily featured. I mean, Uhura's in there and she's doing an okay job and stuff, but you know, the main female role in this particular episode uh, totally loses her cool immediately in the episode and just basically swoons over the alien that they found that has called himself Apollo. And then Kirk magically brings her back to sanity by holding her hand and, like, kind of getting a little close with that hand touch and saying, "Don't you like flesh-to-flesh contact?" And it's like, what? I don't know. Apparently it works for her.
The safety of this entire crew depends on you. No, surely not on me.
There's a lot of that. Even Uhura's like, it's gonna take me some time. And Spock is like, I believe in you. And she's like, okay. And it's like, why? It's just so many things all at once. And you're just like, what happened? Why is this episode so weird? And so, dear viewer, I think this is an episode you should watch. I will not say that you should watch every episode of Star Trek, that's why we're here, but I think that you should watch this particular episode of Star Trek, not because it's a good episode of Star Trek. It has, like, an interesting idea, but not interesting enough to warrant watching it, but just from, like, a historical perspective of, like, you know what, society, we've come a damn long way, but it wasn't that long ago that things were real bad. Like, this is what we said on television, not what we, like, muttered under our breath. This is, like, what was believed by everybody, apparently. So, go watch it and cry a little bit. Not too much. It's in the past, mostly, so.
Apollo's behavior here is really true to the myth. If anything, they tone it down. Like, Apollo says, now I've been with human women before, Daphne and Cassandra, and actually in the source text, those are women that he tried and failed to rape. They're basically coming from the same place as Apollo, with Scotty, who is almost as pernicious a male caricature as Carolyn is a female. It's his job to protect his woman from being stolen by the other man, and despite the fact that the other man has the ability to go and shoot lightning out of his fingers, will just repeatedly fly into a rage even after he's promised Kirk not to, and run and charge at him. Scotty should be dead like 3 times over. And also nerd rage. Why did they give Apollo storm and lightning powers? That's Zeus and Poseidon. He should have a magical bow and arrow. I will say for the special effects that they do work around the fact that they couldn't figure out how to make Apollo grow into giant form on screen by just always showing the bits where he turns into giant form from his point of view camera, and just raising the camera and pointing it down and having the humans go, whoa. I'm on board with that as a sort of hack. Anyway, this is a terrible episode, and any talk of special effects that doesn't start with the fact that Apollo's way of trapping the Enterprise is a mystical force field hand grabbing the ship is such a silly image. You can see how it might have seemed like it would work on paper, but, like, they should have just scrapped it once they saw what it looked like. Oh my god.
I kind of liked it. I was fine with that. I thought it was funny.
It was definitely funny. I just don't think it was supposed to be funny.
I think it's supposed to be a little funny.
Captain, it appears to be a hand.
Well, reverse.
This is our second episode of Chekhov, and the introduction of the joke that Chekhov thinks everything is Russian, or pretends to think everything is Russian. It's not the Cheshire Cat, it's the Minsk Cat. He seems, at least in this episode, to be doing this just to mess with Kirk. And there are jokes about how young he is. that aren't very funny or anything.
Yeah. Well, that was a little weird. You should just watch that one.
Tune in next week for The Changeling. In this episode, we saw one of the main repeated plot elements where they're held captive by an immature but being with godlike powers. So naturally, next episode, we have to go back to the other main theme of the original Star Trek, where there is a crazed artificial intelligence that Kirk has to talk into destroying itself.
Go watch Star Trek and cry a little bit about the state of the world. And come back next week and we'll try to cheer you up from that.